Kia ora. In this video, I'm going to give a brief introduction to vertical development, which I think is the most important leadership idea that most leaders don't know about. My name's David Bennett. I'm a leadership coach and facilitator. I have a master's in coaching psychology from the University of Sydney. I'm going to explain what vertical development is, why it's important to you as a leader, and how you can learn more about it and things you can do to develop yourself. So what is vertical development? Well, when we talk about learning and developing ourselves, there are two kinds of development. Horizontal development refers to adding new skills, information, knowledge, and competencies. It's about what you know. On the other hand, vertical development refers to transformation in a person's thinking capability. It means the ability to think in more complex, systemic, strategic, and interdependent ways. It's about how you think. It means the depth, complexity, and scope of what we know or are aware of can evolve throughout life so you can see new perspectives. This increased awareness can help you respond to challenges and opportunities and navigate the complexity of your leadership role. When I say leadership development is about how you think, as opposed to what you know, horizontal development, I'm talking about your meaning making. In psychology, meaning making is the process of how people understand or make sense of life events, relationships, and their self. So what does this mean for you as a leader? You might be thinking, why should I be interested in vertical development? Well, a study of CEOs and middle managers from various companies in the US, each with annual revenues of over $5 billion, showed that across a range of leadership measures, there was a clear correlation between higher levels of vertical development and higher levels of effectiveness. The development of leadership effectiveness must, therefore, at a minimum, keep pace with the rate of change and the rate of escalating complexity that we have in our current work environments. So research also shows that the complexity leaders face is often greater than their meaning-making capacity. There's a gap, and that can be bridged by vertical development. So that means a critical consideration for you as a leader is the fit between your level of meaning making and the demands of your leadership role and organizational environment or context. In a study of 512 federal government leaders, they found complexity outpaces the capacity for leaders to engage in adaptive thinking and complex systems. So the point I'd like to emphasize here is that increasing your vertical development can enable you to increase your leadership effectiveness. This means that leaders need transformative development. Robert Kegan, one of the main theorists in this area, says transformative learning happens when someone changes not just the way she behaves, not just the way she feels, but the way she knows. Not just what she knows, but the way she knows. Or, as Albert Einstein is quoted as saying, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. Vertical development helps you get a wider level of consciousness. Now, what can you do to support your vertical development? Here's some leadership capabilities that will benefit from vertical development: deepening self-awareness, cultivating empathy, managing cognition, fostering resilience, and influencing others. You'll notice that these aren't the normal horizontal leadership competencies. I've put deepening self-awareness as the first capability to develop because it's so crucial to become aware of what you were previously unaware of. You can do this in a number of ways: through immersing yourself in different experiences, ones that disrupt your usual way of thinking, or exposing yourself to different perspectives from people of diverse worldviews, backgrounds, and opinions. Consistent support, such as with a coach, can aid your vertical growth by helping you make sense of these experiences and perspectives and integrate them into your leadership by thinking, engaging, and acting differently. To help you distinguish between horizontal and vertical development, here's a list of areas ripe for a vertical development approach to how you think. If you find yourself reflecting on who am I? What should I do? What do I value? Or if you'd like to focus on how I make decisions when I'm uncertain, how I deal with conflict and tension, how I deal with responsibility and control, how I motivate myself and others, how I deal with time, how I build trust with others, how I feel about myself, my work, and my leadership role. These are all areas that you can take a vertical development approach to working with. Now, you might be interested in assessing your stage of vertical development. You can be interviewed by someone trained in assessing stages of vertical development, or you could do an online assessment. There's several out there in the market. Both of these assessments analyse the language you use. There are also books, articles, videos, and courses on vertical development. Of the many that are out there, one I'd recommend is the book Simple Habits for Complex Times by Jennifer Garvey Berger and Keith Johnston. They describe 3 habits of mind that stretch your thinking capacity and help you grow more complexity of mind, asking different questions, taking multiple perspectives, and seeing systems. Bill Torbett is another of the vertical development theorists. I really like his approach. Now, he's done a lot of research over decades, and one particular area was researching organisational leaders focusing on large-scale organisational change. He found out that only the chief executives who measured at the more vertical levels of development reliably succeeded in supporting organisational change. Now, Torbett's approach to vertical development is called action inquiry. He describes action inquiry as a way of simultaneously conducting action and inquiry as a disciplined leadership practice that increases the wider effectiveness of your actions. So inquiry refers to in-the-moment self-awareness that allows you to learn in the vividness of each moment, how best to act now. So in practicing action inquiring, you're aiming to be productive and self-assessing in the moment. It's different to what you normally hear about in reflective approaches to leadership. Take action now and sometime in the future reflect and learn from that. In action inquiry, you're simultaneously aware of what's going on around you and inside you, and each is informing the other. Now, Torbett's research has found that leaders at more vertical stages of development, so later stages of development, they experiment more with and seek more feedback on their own practices than earlier stage leaders. So this raises 2 ideas for you. How do you experiment with your leadership practices? And what feedback loops have you created to know the impact of your leadership? I'll give you some more information of each of these areas. For leadership practices, here's some examples I've learned from Catherine Fitzgerald and Jennifer Garvey Berger, who are fantastic practitioners in this area of vertical development. And they've got some really interesting ideas on how leaders can think, engage, and act differently. So for thinking differently, what are your preferred ways of thinking and acting? Are they process and solution, or analysis and expertise that leads to a single best solution, or in learning and experimenting? What are your preferences? Do you consciously choose which approach you use in different situations, or do you automatically go for your preference? Have you created the conditions for people to take action, learn, and adapt? Have you consciously done that? For engaging differently, listen to learn rather than to convince. Make maps of your current relationships, both internal and external, and notice the holes in the patterns that you see of the people you're talking to. Who have you written off as uninteresting or unmovable? And what could you learn by listening to that person rather than trying to tell them something? Can you put your sense of certainty on hold before beginning a conversation so that you can intentionally listen for things that surprise or unsettle you rather than reflexively resisting new ideas? Can you learn to engage with your whole self rather than just your head? What do you notice in your body as you have these types of conversations? For acting differently, meet to create rather than inform, and encourage experimentation and learning. When you have meetings, do you have the right people in the room to get a wide variety of opinions and perspectives? How might you use that diversity of perspectives about a situation or problem to create a wider and more diverse set of possible experiments to experiment your way forward? How can you design safe to fail experiments that will potentially start moving the system while also learning about it? What can you do as a leader to make it safer for people to do experiments that might not succeed? What's the most junior level of the organisation you could trust to make key decisions about a project or experiment? What would it take to allow someone even more junior to make that decision? I've explained what I call the what, so what, and now what of vertical development. I'll leave you with this question. How are you going to integrate vertical development into your leadership development journey.